This is one of the most intriguing fights on the card at 145 pounds. We get a pick 'em fight between me and Hakeem Dawodu taking on Zubaira Tukhugov. And Matt, it's interesting because not that long ago, Zubaira Tukhugov had a feud with the greatest of all time, Artem Lobov. And it's just a shame that fight never materialized. But if you look at his overall body of work, bit of a head scratcher. If you look in the last 5 fights type of mentality, you can throw it totally out of the window because his fifth to last fight was almost 6 years ago. It's insane how long of a layoff he had at a certain point in his career. And we're talking, win over Ernest Chavez. He finishes him. He beats Felipe Nover, who was compared to GSP by Mike Goldberg on a broadcast one time. And then he loses a split decision to Anato Moicano, has an incredibly long layoff of over 3 years, fights Lerone Murphy to a split, draw? Yeah, it was a draw. And then after that fight, he picks up win over Kevin Aguilar. What does that tell me? Lerone Murphy was coming in as a relative unknown and looked great. And hey, Lerone Murphy's last fight, pretty darn good too. So Lerone Murphy, really excited about your career prospects in the UFC. I think you're somebody that people have to watch. But for Zubaira Tukhugov, a lot of people focus on him because coming out of that same camp out of Dagestan with Khabib, one of those main training partners that a lot of people were really excited about. And for good reason, quite a long time ago. That's the thing. So Zubaira Tukhugov, have I been impressed by him in his last number of fights? Well, in the Lerone Murphy fight, it was really close. I could see somebody giving that fight to either guy. I know it ended a draw, but it was a very close fight. One of those rounds not so close. In his last fight against Kevin Aguilar, so he beat a guy from the LFA scene. What does that tell me? What did it tell you?
Well, it was a weird fight because, and here's the thing too, this fight's such a contrast in styles because you know that Tukhugov can do everything. It's just, he's so dominant at the things he does well. If you want to get, like you had mentioned with Mustafayev, if you want to either get spun kicked in the head or taken down 20 times, Zubaira Tukhugov can do both of those things for you. Now, Hakeem Dawodu has a few things to counter that, though. I think the calf kick's really important in this fight. And we could kind of say that in every fight at this point now in MMA. Calf kicks in MMA are kind of like 3-pointers in basketball all of a sudden. Like, if you're not doing it, you're way behind everyone else. But Hakeem Dawodu, it's at least a part of his game to where he ends his combinations with it. There's a lot of jab, left hook, right leg kick, where it's just how he ends it, so he's always staying active that way. The thing that concerns me about Dawodu, though, that inactivity, that really weird, he'll start landing combinations. You're like, oh, the tide's really starting to shift in his favor. And then he'll kind of just let the fight get away from him. Jorge Masvidal mentioned kind of at the start of his career before he had that, year away on the reality TV show that he would get ahead in fights and then kind of coast. And it was sort of unintentional. He didn't mean to do it. It was just mentally he knew, okay, I'm ahead in this fight. Let's not exert all of my energy and get tired. And I don't know if that's something that Hakeem's dealing with because it does seem like he'll do really great at the start of a round. And I think he has started to get better at it as his career's progressed. But I think he gets off to these great leads and it'll just kind of allow himself to coast where when you think about it, he's got really good cardio and he's an explosive guy even in that third round. So if he was able to just kind of up his intensity and his pressure, he'd be able to start putting it on a lot of guys, I would assume, especially as, they start to fatigue. So this fight really comes down to can Dawodu defend a single leg takedown? And really, can Tukhugov have an answer for the forward pressure and the leg kicks and really Muay Thai Dawodu? Because if Tukhugov is just going to hope to stand on the feet and try to land some crazy spinning technique, I think Hakeem probably puts him down.
The interesting thing, too, here is the fact that, if you look at a path to victory for Zubaira Tukhugov, well, I mean, he's like a Swiss Army knife. He can get it done on the feet. But really what we've seen out of those last 2 fights, Lerone Murphy fight, Kevin Aguilar fight, a little bit different because you're taking on a good wrestler in Kevin Aguilar, is the fact that the wrestling and the scrambles are really where Tukhugov has shined. If you look at Hakeem Dawodu, the thing with him was, man, this kid was such a blue chip prospect coming out of World Series. And then he loses that fight to Danny Henry. And you're like, what just happened there? Like, where's the ceiling for this guy? Well, since then he's won 4. Austin Arnett, big win. Kyle Bochniak, that big win over Hori, that big statement win where you get a finish and you get a performance bonus. That means a lot. And then he has that split decision win over Julio Arce, which really makes you kind of scratch your head because really a win over Julio Arce does mean quite a bit. He's a good litmus test in that 25 to 30 mark in a loaded division of featherweight. So it is a good win for Dawodu. And I think odds makers really taking all of that into effect and seeing the fact that this is a pick 'em fight. If you look over in Tapology at 919 votes, 58% going Tukhugov, 72 by decision. I think all of that odds and fan vote put together really giving some shine to the Canadian in Hakeem Dawodu. So in terms of a total pick here, Matt, this is actually, I know, again, it's easy to say because pick 'em odds, this and that, flip of a coin. It is one of the tougher fights to try and predict. What do you make of this one here?
So I do think Dawodu is probably going to be able to get it done just because, like I said, I think on the feet, the power advantage definitely goes with him. And it's not like his power fades as the fight goes on. He himself might kind of lower his output as the fight goes on. But if those same shots land in the first round that land in the third round, they're still going to put you down. I think Tukhugov, that win over Renato Moicano is a really weird one because you look at Moicano and kind of the highs that he's had in the UFC. Like this guy beat Calvin Kattar, and the fight wasn't even close at all when they fought. But he also has a loss to Zubaira Tukhugov. So it's really weird, and it's really hard to say where Tukhugov is when you just think of him as a talent at 145. I think Dawodu is going to be able to get it done, but I do think these are two guys who they'll probably have a rematch kind of further along when both of them are, further in their career. Because I do think Tukhugov, he won't be ranked. He might not, become champ, but I think he's going to be a guy who's around for a while. And Dawodu, with his fighting style, when he fights other really high-level strikers, he might get clipped. He might go down at a certain point. But if you keep on giving him guys who are just kind of well-rounded, he's going to be able to strike the majority of them and keep on putting on fairly exciting fights.
I think this is really interesting because Hakeem Dawodu, if you look at it, 85% takedown defense. He hasn't shot for takedowns in the UFC, but he does have that. The one thing that makes me worry, you win a split decision where you totally outstrike Kyle Bochniak, but Bochniak takes you down. Kyle Bochniak doesn't take people down. So that's the thing that makes me worry. Then again, that was 2 years ago. And you're talking about
that shouldn't have been a split decision either. Like he beat the brakes off Kyle Bochniak.
You look at it, and for Zubaira Tukhugov, huge periods of inactivity, or one major period of inactivity, coupled with the fact that he had the draw against Lerone Murphy that was whatever it was. And then he beat Kevin Aguilar and finished him. So, yeah, maybe you get a bit of a question mark. Again, I'm sure that's why the odds are where they're at. And I'm going to have to side in this fight with Zubaira Tukhugov, again, due to the fact that there's so many different ways that he can win the fight. And if he's able to somehow take Hakeem Dawodu down to the mat, I think he has a huge advantage there. Again, takedown defense is on the side of Dawodu, but it's how long can he defend that takedown? I think Tukhugov just shoots. And I think, you're having a fight over in Abu Dhabi. That also favors him as well. So I think this is definitely the fight for Zubaira Tukhugov. We're going to disagree with our picks. I think this is the first fight on the card that we have so far up. I'm going with Zubaira Tukhugov. You're going with me and Hakeem Dawodu, the Canadian. And Matt, it's kind of weird. We haven't been picking Canadians lately. So, oh boy, you got one. I'm really looking forward to this entire card. We get an extended look at Jan Blachowicz and Dominick Reyes. And in our main event, Israel Adesanya taking on Paulo Costa. You're not going to want to miss that. You're going to want to keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks, Matt. And as we always say, let's get into it.